Today we're focusing on the incredible legacy of some of the vehicles produced by the Chrysler Corporation. Before we begin, a brief history of the company from its humble beginnings when the original Chrysler Corporation was founded in 1925 by its namesake Walter P. Chrysler from the remains of the Maxwell Motor Company is in order. After founding the company, Mr. Chrysler immediately began using the General Motors brand diversification and hierarchy strategy that he had become intimately familiar with when he worked for the Buick division. Offering vehicles in all price ranges from the least expensive Chevrolet, then upwards to Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, and finally Cadillac, ensured a customer would be loyal to GM for a lifetime, as they made more money and moved up the ladder of success. Or at least that was the theory. Later, it proved to be a viable strategy. To achieve this, Chrysler quickly acquired Fargo Trucks and the Dodge Brothers Company, as well as introducing the Plymouth and DeSoto brands in 1928. The company was growing fast, but the stock market crash in 1929 put everything on hold. Chrysler didn't have the cash reserves of their two main competitors, so developing new technology and bringing new designs to market was certainly challenging. However, this is the only way they could compete with their biggest rivals. A loan from Prudential Insurance Company in the amount of $250 million helped keep them in the game. By 1961, DeSoto had folded, and in 1987, American Motors Corporation was acquired, but mainly for its lucrative and iconic Jeep brand. The following year, the company reformed as Daimler Chrysler until 2007. During that time, it was decided to discontinue the Plymouth brand of automobiles in 2001. After Daimler divested of this merger in 2007, and Chrysler was operating on their own once again as Chrysler LLC, it carried on for only 2 years until 2009. From 2009 to 2014, another new identity was presented, called Chrysler Group LLC. As was now typical for this manufacturer, that only lasted a few years until 2014, at which time Fiat, a huge manufacturing concern in Europe and worldwide, acquired the Chrysler Group LLC, and the company's roster of products increased once more under the new moniker of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles until 2021. Business was fairly profitable, but a merger with the current parent company, Stellantis, occurred, and they're still their parent company. Included in their name brands are Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Dodge, Fiat, Jeep, Maserati, Mopar Service Parts and Accessories, Ram Trucks, and the SRT Performance Division. We only limited this list to 10 different vehicles of all eras, with several honorable mentions. We're only discussing cars and trucks made by Chrysler, and not by Jeep, AMC, Mitsubishi, Fiat, or anything else that eventually united with the company through various mergers and acquisitions. All are American-made, or at least are familiar to the American market. They're all listed by year, not by popularity of our choices, except the honorable mentions. We carefully considered our choices. We could have done things the easy way by just featuring cars from the classic muscle car era. We know that most of our subscribers and viewers would have loved this, but we think the Chrysler Corporation, in its many varieties over the past century, certainly deserves better than this. Our discussion will focus mainly on Chrysler, Daimler Chrysler, Chrysler LLC, and the Chrysler Group. There are certainly many worthwhile candidates from the Fiat Chrysler automobiles and Stellantis eras, but we're recognizing cars that many people have never heard of before. This list is only our personal opinions of the most influential Chrysler products of all time, but we welcome your comments. So sit back and enjoy the review of one of America's largest automakers and one that has survived a tumultuous history to now be part of one of the largest auto groups in the world. Not too bad for a guy who started life in rural Ellis, Kansas in April of 1875, and quickly proved that he had much to contribute to the world. There are many books about Mr. Chrysler, so you can read about his fascinating story yourself if you wish. The Classic Car Club of America defines a full classic as a fine or distinctive automobile, American or foreign built, produced only between 1915 and 1948. Many factors come into play, but generally, a classic was a higher-priced, top-end vehicle when new and was built in limited quantities. No mass-produced assembly line vehicles are considered full classics. Other factors, including larger engine displacement, custom coachworks, and luxury accessories, are the hallmarks of such motor cars. Modern for the time mechanical developments such as power brakes, a power clutch, and a one-shot or automatic lubrication systems all help determine whether a car can be considered a full classic. Only certain models of the following vehicles built during the 1915 through 1948 time period are recognized as CCCA classics. We've included a link to the description so you can not only look up all the Chryslers on the list, but every other full classic as well. Of all the choices, we think the 1931 Chrysler Custom Imperial with custom coachwork by Waterhouse is simply stunning from every angle, but every other inductee into this exclusive club is just as worthy. What's your favorite? The Dodge Power Wagon is a four-wheel drive, medium-class pickup that was produced in various model series from 1945 until 1980 by the Dodge division of Chrysler. The actual name Power Wagon was originally licensed from Walter C. Coffey of Chicago. He was the president and general manager of the Power Wagon, which was the official publication of the Motor Truck Journal for the USA's truck industry from 1915 to 1963, when the company was sold by Mr. Coffey. The name is appropriate for these tough-looking, all-business, heavy-duty, medium-class trucks. Many men who served in the armed forces during World War II had been exposed to practical vehicles like Jeeps, and after returning home to their vocations, found they could really use these various vehicles. As you know, the Jeep was soon being produced in a civilian version called the CJ, or Civilian Jeep. The Power Wagon was no different. Based on Dodge's 3/4-ton WC series trucks commonly used by the military in all branches of the service and throughout the world, there was an immediate demand for them once the war was over. The Power Wagon was the first 4x4 medium-duty truck produced by a major manufacturer in a civilian version. It was originally marketed as the WDX truck, but up until about 1960, it was internally known at Dodge by its engineering code name of T137, a term still used by enthusiasts of these trucks up to present day. Like every other automaker, Chrysler badge engineered these trucks to provide a greater number of nameplates to foreign or overseas markets. Early in its history, the company acquired the Fargo name, as well as creating a new division called DeSoto. Other than some identification differences, these trucks were all about the same under the skin. Over the years, the basic design was used for ambulances, transport trucks, canopy trucks, and even tow trucks. They were found in both military and civilian settings. They were extremely versatile trucks for many industries, and there were many custom conversions done by independent companies to meet the needs of their customers. Service parts were available for many years after, so consequently, most items needed to refurbish or restore a Power Wagon are readily available from specialty suppliers and parts vendors, and even individual enthusiasts who have large parts stashes. They're pretty simple mechanically, so someone with a rudimentary knowledge of mechanical components could handle most repairs needed. Every time we see one at a show, crowds gather because they're just so cool. If you find one to restore, always get the best and most complete truck you can find. You'll save money and time in the long run. If you love trucks, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything cooler than a Power Wagon. This particular model was a bold move for Chrysler because it was specifically aimed at the female buyer. Study after study by each automaker clearly showed that women had considerable influence in car buying decisions. Dodge was the first and maybe only company that ever marketed a specific model exclusively to women. The history of the development of the La Femme from concept to market is fascinating. They were advertised with the slogan as, quote, "by special appointment to Her Majesty, the American woman," unquote. Both years, standard features were both sophisticated and ultra-feminine. Things like a personalized engraved purse containing a cigarette case and lighter, a compact and a comb, as well as a raincoat, a rain hat, and galoshes, along with an umbrella, and all were pink in color. These items all stored neatly in a special compartment behind the driver's seat. A company called Evans created all of these items for the package. In 1955, every one of the La Femmes sold were painted an attractive two-tone of heather rose and sapphire white. The interiors used complementary materials to showcase the target demographic for this attractive motor car. In 1956, all the extras but the handbag were still included, but this year, the La Femme would be painted a two-tone Misty Orchid and Regal Orchid. Matching interiors were still seen in this exclusive model, but by this time, a bit more dramatic in presentation. In all, Chrysler's Dodge division sold less than 2,500 of these cars for both years, proving once and for all that even though women influenced car buying decisions, they really didn't want their own model. A hard lesson for the marketing team at Chrysler, but now it's a car that's highly collectible today. We prefer the colors and interiors of the 56s, but would love to have either year. Which one's your favorite? The beginning of the letter series cars was in 1955 when Chrysler debuted the C300, the only year of this series where the letter preceded the number 300. Every year thereafter, the letter followed the number 300, increasing one letter of the alphabet for each new year until these cars were no longer considered letter series cars after the 300M in 1966. The 300 models, of course, did continue on into 1970 as a Hurst-modified Hurst 300. No 300 was built until the final version of this legendary nameplate was used from 2011 until 2023. The 300B's external styling was very similar to its immediate predecessor, but featured a new tail fin design and a slightly revised grille. Color choices were updated to include regimental red, cloud white, and black, while the tan leather interiors remained. An optional new front center hump mounted audio player called Highway Hi-Fi, made by CBS Electronics exclusively for Chrysler from 1955 through 59, was available, and although they were built inside a shock-proof enclosure, they proved to be problematic. They also had to be factory installed. No aftermarket installations were done. This was also the final year for the coil spring front suspension. New this year was a larger standard engine with the Hemi V8 now displacing 354 cubic inches and producing an impressive for the time 340 horsepower, or with a bit more compression, 355 horsepower. This engine was exclusive to the 300, the New Yorker, and the Imperial. A total of 1,102 Bs were sold, and there was a lot of competition in the ultra-luxury car market this year. So Chrysler successfully raced them to prove to the public that they not only had handsome looks, but could fly as well. Performance was improved significantly over the C300 when a specially prepared car hit a top speed of nearly 140 miles per hour at the Daytona Flying Mile. The 300B became the first American car to produce 1 horsepower per cubic inch, beating Chevrolet to the punch with their hype of their fuel-injected 283 V8, accomplishing the same feat 1 year later. They would purchase cars from Chrysler and modify a few appearance features, but essentially raced the cars as they were sold, with leather interiors and other standard features. To us, that's what makes this car one of our favorites. By 1957, Virgil Exner had been supervising the styling of every Chrysler product for the past 3 years. His designs were certainly more dramatic than previous models before his arrival for the 1955 model year. From 1955 until the end of 1963 production, Exner's cars were known as forward-look models because they were supposedly the most modern-appearing vehicles on the road. Many of the cars and trucks from the Exner era are a bit over the top, which was really the styling of many other automobiles at the time. But the one car that he got right, at least in our opinion, is the 1957 DeSoto Adventurer. Wow! What a stunningly beautiful car from all angles. Plus, the engineers also perfected the new torsion bar front suspension and the new TorqueFlite 3-speed automatic transmission with dash-mounted push-button controls. This would also be the only year these cars had a 345 cubic inch displacement Hemi engine utilizing 2 4-barrel carbs. This combination produced 1 horsepower per cubic inch. DeSoto was founded in 1928 and lasted through the 1961 model year. Overall, looking at yearly production number totals, they were a successful product line for the Chrysler Corporation. In 1957, DeSoto made the Adventurer its own series and added a striking convertible as a second body style. As in 1956, color choices were only limited to 2 different two-tone combinations. By the end of the model year, 1,950 Adventurers found new homes, of which exactly 300 were drop tops. By the end of the availability of the Adventurer after 1960, this number would prove to be the highest production year of them all. Styling appeal is never logical, it's personal, and the 57 DeSoto Adventurers are still tops in the looks department, or at least we think so. How about you?
Go.
Pickup trucks really came to their own during the 1950s. People found out how practical owning a truck could be, but many folks just didn't like the utilitarian look of most trucks built immediately after World War II. But arguably, it wasn't until Ford debuted their new F100, F250, and F350 series in 1953 that people started purchasing pickups in larger numbers than ever before, many citing styling as an important part of the decision to buy. The epitome of a styled pickup at the time was brought to market by Dodge, and they incorporated the rear quarter panels and bumper from the 2-door Dodge Suburban station wagon. The design of the Suburban was penned by the team headed up by Virgil Exner. They were called Sweptline and featured 2-tone paint, special side moldings, and a tailgate which was specially modified by the Dodge Truck Special Equipment Group. They were rather expensive as compared to other trucks at the time, so at the end of the 59 model year, it was discontinued. However, the stylists and engineers were already working on an entirely new series of light trucks that were to debut in 1961, and they were to be called Sweptline, a name Dodge unofficially used since the end of the swept side. This new truck no longer had the stylized rear quarters of the swept side, making the new bed larger and wider, which is exactly what many work truck buyers required. The prior year, Dodge only laid claim to a disappointing 6% of the domestic truck market. A freshly designed new truck series was just what they needed. The well-known Dart name was used to promote this new truck in 1961. Officially, the Sweptline era trucks would endure through 1971. However, Dodge unofficially still used this term until 1995, when it was finally replaced by Ram. The Sweptline look was low and wide, thanks to a new drop center frame. These trucks had a more passenger car-like design with clean, uncluttered lines which flowed smoothly from the truck's front to rear. Inside, these trucks had more room in the cab, and the dash and instrumentation were also more user-friendly and attractive. Because this new design relocated the steering gear, a high-ratio box was used to give the driver a more passenger car-like experience. By 1964, stylists even added bucket seats with a console to the option list. Sales increased handily because these trucks were far superior to anything Dodge had built previously. Which is your favorite Sweptline era truck? Tell us in the comments. When looking at lists of Chrysler platforms and their various models that were used on many different cars for many years, the internally named B-body design seems to be one of the most prolific of them all. Throughout the years, this basic design platform was used on 5 different wheelbases, from the first offerings in 1962 through the final editions in 1979. The B-body platform included a wide range of now classic cars, from utilitarian sedans and wagons all the way up to the muscle cars that we admire today. This platform would exhibit many significant changes throughout its production run due to government regulations, improved design, better technology, and other factors, but that was all under the skin. What people saw was above the basic chassis, and they were restyled by the imaginations of the various design and engineering teams and their leaders, so that, at least at a quick glance, these cars all appeared entirely different from one another. From Dodge, only mentioned in alphabetical order, are every model known as the B-body. Some names were used previously, but these are the particular cars seen from the period of 1962 to 79. The models are the 300, the 330, the 440, the Charger, the Cordoba, the Coronet, the Dart, the Magnum, the Monaco, the Polara, and the Super Bee. From Plymouth, the models considered to be part of this family are the Belvedere, the Fury, the GTX, the Roadrunner, the Satellite, and the Savoy. The Chrysler division never produced a B-body car during this time. Their primary focus was on this division being the one that offered more luxurious cars than their other divisions. This would change in later years, however. Of course, standard and optional equipment would interchange from model to model and year to year, but the thing most enthusiasts are most interested in is the specific of engine availability. Without going into lengthy detail which years and models got all these different power plants, here are the different engines that were available. We'll list them by cubic inch displacement. Remember, carburation differed, as did horsepower ratings for each engine, depending on the year. The engines available in a B-body were the 198 or 3.2 liter slant 6, the 225 or 3.7 liter slant 6, the 318 or 5.2 liter V8, the 340 or 5.6 liter V8, the 360 and 361 or 5.9 liter V8, the 383 or 6.3 liter V8, the 400 or 6.6 liter V8, the 426 or 7 liter Hemi V8, and the 440 or 7.2 liter V8. It's clear to see why these cars sold so well for so many years. Available as basic transportation, family haulers, mild performance cars, or all-out blood and guts muscle, these B-bodies could do it all. Their values, even on basic no-frills models, are rising each year because lots of parts exist in the aftermarket to turn Grandma's old 68 Coronet hardtop with a slant 6 into a fire-breathing, crate Hemi engine-powered pro touring car. What's your favorite B-body? Let us know in the comments if you have any fond memories of a car like this. Trans Am racing was now a very popular spectator sport, and the first few years were dominated by a lot of different makes except Mopar. But the completely new E-bodies would change all that. By the end of 1972, the muscle car market had, for all intents and purposes, nearly dried up. Nevertheless, Chrysler was able to successfully bring to market two series of pony cars for 1970, the Dodge Challenger and the Plymouth Barracuda, or simply CUDA for their performance models. Although at a quick glance they appeared to be very similar, there were many differences. Both nameplates were offered as coupes or convertibles. However, both cars shared many of the same styling cues, such as concealed windshield wipers, flush door handles, and the industry's first molded polypropylene door panels. Many bright and loud colors were optional, and not so subtle stripes and graphics, along with spoilers front and rear, and that was all the order of the day. Designer Carl Cameron, in collaboration with various engineers and interior stylists, created the iconic lines of this sexy Dodge. They were intentionally designed to accept any of Chrysler's available drivetrains, from the lowly Slant 6 to the legendary Hemi. Over at Plymouth, head designer John Hurlitz penned a similar car with the same mechanical design features. Along with several different sub-series and specialty models, these cars proved almost immediately how much the public would revere them. Today, ultra-high-performance models of these cars that have all the right options and are heavily documented bring seven figures anytime they're offered for sale. Earlier, it was stated that Trans Am racing inspired the development of both cars. Because of rule changes in 1970, Chrysler was able to field both the Dodge Challenger TA and the Plymouth AAR CUDA, both sporting 340 cubic inch high-performance engines using three two-barrel Holley carbs. They were only available the first year of E-body production, but are also highly sought after by collectors. After the Hemi, the 446 barrel, and the convertible were discontinued in these pony cars after the 71 model year, they did continue to be built and sold, with a steady demand for several more years until Chrysler finally pulled the plug after the 1974 model year of both brands. Today, the popularity of the E-body is immeasurable. The automotive aftermarket has made nearly every part available as a reproduction, and even an entirely new Challenger body is available in steel as well. Without a doubt, these E-body cars are highly desirable and well served in the aftermarket, making a restoration a lot less daunting. If you want one, you better buy one soon, because prices just keep going up. What's your favorite E-body year and model? Do you have a story about yours, or maybe the one that got away? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Before the Little Red Express, nobody had produced or were currently building a half-ton pickup truck for a market of high-performance enthusiasts. For years, hot rodders took the trucks that were available and modified them themselves. By the end of the 1970s, trucks were being marketed with many more creature comforts than they'd ever had. Many Americans now consider the domestic pickup a multi-purpose vehicle. Use it for work during the week, use it for home improvement projects on the weekends, and take it out on a Saturday evening to an event where valets will park your vehicle for you. A truck that could be everything to its owner would rack up the most sales, and that was obvious. Manufacturers began realizing this was the way the entire truck market was heading, but nobody did anything more than load up a current offering with niceties such as air conditioning, power windows, and automatic transmissions. But Dodge was already ahead of everyone else, way ahead. The marketing team at Chrysler sensed the public wanted something different than what was currently available. For 1976, the Dodge boys built a concept truck that toured all the new car shows that year, and it was a smash. It was essentially a customized standard Dodge step-side pickup that had tinted windows, fat raised white leather tires mounted on chrome-slotted wheels, an oak-lined bed along with oak sideboards, and finally, chrome-plated step plates behind the cab. The exterior was accented with gold pinstriping that outlined the wheel wells and body lines. Inside were bucket seats and a sports steering wheel. They were called Warlock, and all had black interiors that also sported additional gold accents throughout. They were so well received at the new car shows, along with press coverage from all the car-related magazines of the day, that it was decided that they'd be available in the late 1976 model year, and then as a regular production option beginning in 1977. For this year, most other options available could also be ordered on the Warlock, including 2- or 4-wheel drive, any available engine, and so much more. It quickly became part of what Dodge called their adult toy line. These packages were only cosmetic. It'd be up to the new owner to customize the truck with performance enhancement, but the Warlock package at least gave them a great foundation to build on. Additionally, Ram Chargers, vans, and other trucks would all join this special group of vehicles. Thanks to current smog regulations, the Warlock pioneered a visually exciting truck, but one lacking in performance. The Warlock continued into 1978, along with the new Little Red Express. But this year, Dodge took advantage of a loophole in the emissions regulations that had been overlooked in the Warlock. The standard engine on the Little Red was a 360 with a 4-barrel carb. All were 2-wheel drive and had automatics, and all were bright red, unlike the Warlocks, which could be had in 3 different colors. Their trademark was the iconic exhaust stacks that immediately put them at the top of the adult toy line. When these awesome trucks were finally available and tested by all the magazines of the day, it was soon learned that they were the quickest production vehicle in 1978, even faster than a Corvette. In 1979, the grills were changed pretty significantly from the year before, and the feds closed the loophole. So all these trucks were required to have catalytic converters, unlike the previous year. Today, the Little Red Express is a highly coveted special interest vehicle from the rather lackluster offerings from the 1970s. Sure, there were a few exceptions, but performance was essentially dead after the first oil embargo in 1973. By 1980, things were dismal in Detroit, but the adult toy line was quietly discontinued, and it'd be another decade and a half until Detroit began selling performance cars and trucks. The Dodge Viper was first produced for the 1992 model year, and from the start, engineers sought to make it a world-class sports and race car. Produced through the 2017 model year, these cars were available in several specific models and body styles throughout their more than 23 years in production, where nearly 32,000 were built. Because Chrysler changed ownership 5 times during this period, as well as having problems with recall issues on several occasions, the Viper was improved at least that many times while also developing many different models for motorsport competition. We'll highlight the major changes and encourage you to find out more about these amazing cars. There's tons of info online, and they have a large network of enthusiast groups as well. So here's the story in brief. The first series for 92 was the SR1, available as a roadster only. Lamborghini, which at the time was part of Daimler Chrysler, helped develop the high-performance V10 engine. It displaced 8 liters and produced 400 horsepower. With a few added features over the next 4 years, including a removable hardtop in 94, the Viper would essentially remain the same under the skin until 1995. In 96, the SR2 replaced it, and the basic 8-liter engine was now capable of producing 415 horsepower initially. and with further development would pump out 450 horses through new cylinder heads, cams, and exhaust. The Roadster was now called RT10, and later in the year, a new hardtop coupe was called the GTS. Also new this year was air conditioning as well as airbags for crash safety. For 2003 to 06, the Viper was codenamed ZB1. After a major redesign the previous year by Daimler Chrysler, a new 8.3-liter V10 was now under that beautifully styled hood, and now pumping out more than 500 horsepower. The engine and chassis components were now being engineered by a new division with the company called Street and Racing Technology, or SRT. In 03, the RT10 was replaced by the SRT Roadster, while the GTS was replaced by the SRT Coupe in 2006. For 2007, Dodge didn't build any Vipers for reasons unknown, although there's much speculation about it online. For 2008, production resumed, now codenamed ZB2, where the most noteworthy improvement was the new 8.4-liter V10 rated at 600 horsepower. The Viper remained unchanged for 2009, and just as in 2007, Chrysler opted not to produce any of these cars for the next 3 years. Beginning again in 2013, the Viper SRT still used an 8.4-liter engine, now making 40 more horsepower than the previous 600. In 2015, the cars were simply called Vipers and made 645 horsepower. With uncertain ownership and management, it was decided to retire this now iconic performance machine to the history books. These cars have a cult-like following today, so much so that there was a television series from 94 to 98 called Viper, as well as a video game of the same name. Amazingly, even the earliest cars still look remarkably contemporary when seen at a show. What we like about this car, and the Prowler for that matter, is how different they were from everything else being offered at the time. Doing something out of the norm is risky, but hey, no risk, no reward, right? Do you have a favorite year and model Viper? Let us know in the comments. As we began researching what is undoubtedly the sales leader for Chrysler in the performance car arena, we realized their story is much bigger than a mention in one of our top 10 videos. No, we could make a video, and a long one at that, about these awesome cars, but this brief description will have to suffice for now. Particularly the Challenger Coupe has very brand-specific styling, and they don't look like anything else on the road. Sure, technically they're classified as pony cars, but even a casual enthusiast would never mistake one for a Camaro or a Mustang or any of the other numerous offerings from Asia and Europe. As far as the Charger, although some models have very impressive performance and handling, we don't think that the styling is particularly different than some of the other cars from other manufacturers. But there's no doubt they've been well received since the first one rolled off the line in 2006. Many are seen performing law enforcement duties, but like their Challenger cousins, the plug was pulled in 2023. Speaking now about the sexy Challenger to a non-Mopar aficionado, it could be argued that these cars never really changed significantly from the 2008 introduction to 2023. Really, aside from some different options, trim options, drivetrain choices, colors, etc., only a true Dodge enthusiast knows all the subtle nuances of each year and model. We'll leave it to you, dear viewer, to delve down the rabbit hole that is mastering what's what about these modern collectible offerings from Chrysler. By the early 80s, Chrysler was in serious trouble. Suffering from countless quality control issues throughout the previous decade, lackluster performance and reliability issues, and other than the adult toy line, very unexciting offerings, it seemed hopeless. Until automotive marketing genius Lee Iacocca suddenly was available in 1978 after being unceremoniously dismissed by Henry Ford II earlier that year. If anyone could turn things around, it'd be Iacocca. He accepted the job offer extended by Chrysler and soon became the president and CEO of the third largest automaker. He would immediately see the need for an economical yet versatile line of cars that had to be better than the competition's. Do you remember those television commercials where he stated, quote, "If you can find a better built car, then buy it," unquote. Pretty bold, right? At the time, he was talking about Chrysler's new line of what would be known as K cars. Beginning in 1981, almost every offering from Chrysler was a K car, from basic transportation to the luxurious LeBaron. Well, these cars sold extremely well, bringing Chrysler from the brink of extinction. Not one to rest on his previous accomplishments, Iacocca saw a huge gap in the market for what's colloquially now known as the minivan. Teaming up with an ex-colleague from his early Ford Mustang days, Iacocca partnered with Hal Sperlich when he departed Ford in the late 1970s. Both men remembered a concept vehicle under development for a small personal use van that had been under consideration at their former employer. Iacocca decided to develop this concept further, and thus the minivan was born in 1984. It took the market by storm and caught all the competition by surprise. That market would exclusively belong to Chrysler until everyone else could bring their version of the minivan to market. Now, there's nothing particularly noteworthy about a minivan from any standpoint, appearance, performance, a huge option list, or anything else. However, remember that this list is about significant cars that Chrysler brought to market, and we don't think there's anything more significant than a new type of vehicle saving an entire company from bankruptcy and extinction while influencing the entire industry to reimagine personal transportation. We know everyone has a minivan story. What's yours? Well, that wraps up our look at what we think were some of the top influential cars and trucks that changed the Chrysler Corporation to what it is today. Please let us know what you think of our list or which ones you'd take out. But then again, what would you replace it with? Next week, join us again as we bring you a one-of-a-kind Ford Model T. But more specifically, it's a 1924 Roadster. It's got an intriguing story, so you don't want to miss it. See you here next Friday, and thanks for watching.